Hi guys, it's Kate here for the first video in a new series I will be doing, and I'm going to be calling that series Game Changer Books. And the first series that was the catalyst for me to start this series was As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. Now, I have avoided, like the plague, reading William Faulkner for years and years, just because he has such a reputation for being so innocuous and has lots of confusing dialect in his books, and is just really hard to understand. And so I knew I didn't want to read Mr. Faulkner for the first time on my own, so I asked Stephanie from That's What She Read and Whitney from All the Shelves if they would be interested in joining me for a buddy read, and they were up for it. And I think that is part of the reason that made the experience of me reading this book so amazing, and that this book will stay with me for so long, were the wonderful, wonderful discussions that I had with them about this book. Now, in case you don't know, As I Lay Dying is about the Bundren family, and the mother, Addie, is at death's door on her deathbed and will pass away soon, and has said that she wants her body to be taken to Jefferson County, where her family is from. She wants to be buried with her family, go back to her roots. And so this is about, after she passes away, their journey to take her back to Jefferson County. And what makes this book so interesting is not really the actions that happen, although that is a fairly interesting scenario for a book to be taking, for a bereaved family to be taking a loved one back to their family, but it was more the people in this and the stellar writing that was in this. Now, when I say a game changer book, I just mean a book that as I'm reading it, several times I thought, I did not know books could be like this. I did not know books could affect me this way. And there are several other books in my life that have affected me as much as this, but in different ways. And so I look forward to telling you all about those. And so this was just, after I finished it, I was at such a loss for words. But one of the things that I think is really special about this book is it's a very vivid and intense portrayal of grief and people. And after Addie passes away, which is very soon in the book, and it's going to happen, so I don't feel that that's a spoiler, you see how differently different people react to grief and how it affects them in such unique ways, because everyone is such a unique person. And so it was really interesting to read this and see the different portraits of the different people and how different these siblings, all from one family, could be from one another. Some of them were very, they wore their heart on their sleeve, and you could tell exactly how they were feeling after this. Or as opposed to one of the siblings in particular, I'm thinking of, his name was Cash, and his way to grieve is he's just building this coffin. So he's just talking about the different ways that he's built this coffin and the different things you should do when you're building a coffin. He says, I made it on the bevel. There's more surface for the nails to grip. There's twice the gripping surface to each seam. The water will have to seep into it on a slant. Water moves easiest up and down or straight across. In a house, people are upright 2/3 of the time, so the seams and joints are made up and down because the stress is up and down. And that's the chapter, is just this list of different ways that you're supposed to build the coffin. And so it was really interesting, because I think sometimes as readers we can want these really straightforward chapters, and so someone to say, I'm really sad, I am so distraught that my mother passed away, I don't think I can go on without my mother. And so it was really different and unique, but a brilliant way for that person's grief to come across. So I think in his lifetime, William Faulkner probably knew a fair number of different kinds of people and saw them grieve in very different ways. And so that was really interesting to me and really thought-provoking, and just showing how just these different temperaments and kinds of personalities that everyone had, they're going to be affected very different ways by tragedies that happen in their lifetime. And then another thing that I was really struck by in this book was the kind of visceral, grotesque quality of Faulkner's writing, and that he showed a lot of the kind of gross physicalities of different situations that were happening, but the writing really stuck with me, and it was really beautiful in a kind of grotesque sort of way. So one instance that I think of, it says about the father, he looks out over the land, awry-haired, mouthing the snuff slowly against his gums. So really just these like extra gritty details about physicalities that I haven't seen in other writing. And then another part of this book, another aspect that makes it really interesting, is Faulkner giving certain characters other elements that they kind of anthropomorphize or also identify as an extension of themselves or even of their mother. And so one character in particular is thinking about his mother's passing while in the meantime they've caught a fish. So there's so much symbolism and imagery, and really atypical symbolism and imagery, and he was just such a unique thinker. And so there's a chapter where they've caught this fish, and it says Vardaman comes back and picks up the fish. It slides out of his hands, smearing wet dirt onto him, and flops down, dirtying itself again, gap-mouthed, goggle-eyed, hiding into the dust like it was ashamed of being dead, like it was in a hurry to get back hid again. Vardaman cusses it. He cusses it like a grown man standing astraddle of it. Aints don't look around. Vardaman picks it up again. He goes on around the house, toting it in both arms like an armful of wood, it overlapping him on both ends, head and tail, dern nigh big as he is. And so it's just really refreshing to read writing that is not like all of the other reading and writing that I do. And so it just really stuck out to me and had me so glued to the page. And in this book, I annotated so much just because it was so unique and so different. And I guess it's just really gritty and grotesque, and it's beautiful in a very different way and different than the typical thing that I might read. So then another aspect of this book where I said it was kind of grotesque and talks about physicalities is then the way he talks about physicalities with people and actions that are happening to them is so evocative that it makes you feel like you're there and you can feel that happening to your own body. So then there's one character talking about falling asleep at night and getting a drink of water. And at night it is better still. I used to lie on the pallet in the hall waiting until I could hear them all asleep so I could get up and go back to the bucket. It would be black, the shelf black, the still surface of the water around orifice and nothingness, where before I started awake with the dipper I could see maybe a star or two in the bucket, and maybe in the dipper a star or two before I drank. After that I was bigger, older. Then after that, I would wait until they all went to sleep. And so Whitney was especially noticing that it's very poetic. And yeah, it just feels very poetic that him kind of making the illusion that he's drinking the stars. And so just so many vivid parts that just made this book really stick in my mind. And this book is going to stay with me for so long. And then more of another example of the kind of grotesqueness. The sun, an hour above the horizon, is poised like a bloody egg upon the crest of thunderheads. The light has turned copper, in the eye portentous, in the nose sulphurous, smelling of lightning. I just love that image, the smelling of lightning. I think another aspect of William Faulkner that does intimidate a lot of people is that time is not always linear with him. And so that was another aspect of doing this as a buddy read that really made me feel like I could kind of tackle this, because it can be really intimidating if you're reading on your own and you feel like you don't have anyone to consult. So it was just so great to kind of bounce ideas off the other ladies. So there's one passage in particular, and I can't tell you what happens in that scene because it's too much of a spoiler, but I'll just read a specific part of that that really shows you how when William Faulkner is talking about time, it is not linear, and it's as if time slows down and has just paused while people are watching these dramatic events happen. It says, it is as though the space between us were time, an irrevocable quality. It is as though time, no longer running straight before us in a diminishing line, now runs parallel between us like a looping string, the distance being the doubling accretion of the thread and not the interval between. And as I was reading this and then, going into the event that happened in this scene, I felt exactly like I was there, and I had never seen a writer kind of slow down time in that way, and it reminded me of an instance when I was a little kid and something really bad was about to happen to me, and it was like I saw time stretched out before me, and it wasn't in this formation, and everything just kind of slowed down even though it was all happening really quickly. And that was, right here, he put that, how I felt in that moment. And he just has such a unique way that's so different from anyone I've ever read of writing things and describing events and places and people and physicalities. And so this is not a feel-good book at all, but it was so amazingly written and so evocative that I really had fun. And I really enjoyed reading it with people. And so I am kind of reassessing what I'm picking to read, because I know I've heard several people say just that the books that you get through really quickly don't stay with you as long. And so I'm thinking back to the other books that I call the game changer books, and those have really stayed with me. And so as much as I love reading mysteries or, more modern things, I also want to read books that stay with me and pick more of those. So in the upcoming months, I really want to curate what I read, and I want to make sure I'm picking things that will stay with me and are just good fodder for thought and conversation and buddy reads. And so I will definitely be picking up more William Faulkner in the future. This was a great one to start off with. I heard from Whitney that The Sound and the Fury is even more innocuous than this, so someday I might take that on. I already own, you can see it right there, Absalom, so maybe that's the next one that I'll do, but also I know The Light in August Whitney absolutely adores, so I might try that. So thank you, Whitney and Stephanie, for reading this with me. We just kept talking about how much we were enjoying it, and so it was just one of the best buddy read experiences I've ever had, and I definitely want to have more modern American literature in my lineup for the reading. So I think William Faulkner and Willa Cather and Edna Ferber are going to be some people that are in that lineup. So I hope you guys enjoyed this somewhat rambly review, but I knew I might not be able to do the most stellar job reviewing it, but I loved it so much that I had to share it with you lovely people. And I hope maybe this encourages you to pick up some William Faulkner, because it was absolutely incredible. And being someone who grew up in Mississippi, very close to where he grew up, like about an hour from where he grew up, it felt so nostalgic, and this book is incredibly atmospheric. And so it was just even though it was these kind of awful experiences, the nostalgia made it somewhat of a cozy experience, and seeing some of the dialect that I grew up hearing was really special to me. So yes, altogether it was a great experience, and the only unfortunate thing is that it's put me in a major book hangover, and I'm like, nothing will live up to William Faulkner now. So I'm kind of deciding whether I should just read something super light or read something kind of like that, and I'm just kind of conflicted. I might pick up an Ian McEwan. We will see. So I hope you have enjoyed this somewhat rambly review, and I will see you for another video soon. Bye, guys.